loke iti. That means as much diversity is existing in the world outside, also shown in human inside. That is the Jiyat Pinde Tat Brahmande, as man is the epitome of the universe. We know that our daily regimen, the Dinacharya, is starting from the Brahma Muhurta, which is mentioned as Brahma Muhurte Uttishtet Swasto Rakshartam Ayusha. What is exactly the Brahma Muhurta is? This is a period of 1.5 hours before the sun rises, or more precisely, we can tell 1 hours and 36 minutes before the sunrise, that is exactly 96 minutes. If we see the female reproductive system, that is functions as an interplay of hormones dependable on the biological clock of the body. As our previous speakers are already spoken about the biological clock, which is maintaining inside our body, in today's era, due to the changes of our lifestyles, it have a pivotal role in the manifestation of some gynecological disorders. See the 24 hours, the time of bath or the predominance time of bath is between 2 to 6 o'clock. As Vata is having the function of Marka Pravartana, so all the secretions of hormones is during that time, particularly we can say the Kala of Brahma Muhurta. Actually, will compare the seasons according to the daily routine, that is Pratyusa Kala compared with the Hemanta Rutu. Pratyusasi Hemantam Upalakshate. If we see the Hemanta Kala or Hemanta Rutu exactly, it comes under the Pisarga Kala, where the Bala of the persons or human is at the highest level. The Bala is at the highest level. Also, the Agni, mentioned as Balinam Bali Bhakta Bhavati Hemante, the Agni, particularly the metabolism or the digestive fire, is also at the highest level. If we compare the Brahma Muhurta with the Hemanta Rutu, the Bala and Agni is also at the highest level. Also, the functions of Vata is predominant at this time. So, the functions of all the hormones, the secretion of all the hormones, particularly happening at this time or Brahma Muhurta, we can say. So Brahma Muhurta, according to the concept of Ayurveda, is dominated by Hemanta Rutu, where the Agni and the strength of the body is at the highest level. If we sleep, if a person is sleeping after the Brahma Muhurta, what happens? The Kapha Kala begins. So Kapha along with the Tamaguna blocks the channels or the srotas inside our body. So the regenerations and hormonal secretion are being hampered. So the biological clock, which is functioning inside our body, is somehow affected by this kind of routine or lifestyle changes. So what is exactly the circadian rhythm? The circadian rhythm, we can say it is a biological process that displays an endogenous oscillation of about 24 hours, which is maintained by a master, which is known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is situated at the anterior hypothalamus, is known as master circadian pacemaker. The pacemaker is having some stimuli from the certain things, that is the biochemical rhythms like the body thermoregulation, melatonin, cortisol secretions, the TSH level, growth hormones, etc. And also the behavioral patterns of our daily routine like the sleep wake cycle as we are maintaining in our daily life, also affecting the suprachiasmatic nucleus or the master circadian pacemaker. If we see the female reproductive system, there are two chains of axis, or we can say hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and also hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis, maintaining certain group of hormones that regulates the fit all the reproductive functions, if that is the secretion of FSH, LH, progesterone, estrogen, all these hormones are regulated by two axes inside the body, that is HPA axis and HPO axis. So who is the master? The master is the circadian rhythm or the master pacemaker, which is situated at the anterior hypothalamus. So if we divide the circadian rhythm into times, that is the daytime and the night time, what happens is in the daytime, when the bright light enters, when the sun rises, your eyes or your pineal gland secretes the serotonin, which makes us feel fresh at the time of our daytime. At the night, what happens when the daylight fades, the serotonin production stops and the pineal glands begins producing the melatonin hormone at the time of night. So these two hormones are particularly maintaining the daily routine, that is the daytime and nighttime. When we are deviating such routines, then the hormonal secretion is also deviated. If we see the function of certain hormones, then we can see the growth hormones, melatonin, prolactin, the primary hormones of reproductive systems secretes and function at the highest level during the time of 2 to 6 o'clock, that is a Brahma Muhurta Kala. So sleep-wake pattern, that is the melatonin and cortisol hormones that vary in a strong circadian component with high melatonin levels throughout the biological night and during which the cortisol levels are minimal. When at the time of early morning the cortisol peaks, the melatonin secretion is already declining to reach almost undetectable levels during the day. So these are two hormones that maintains our sleep awake cycle in the daily routine. Also, another thing is sleep has an inhibitory effect on the TSH secretion. We know the TSH is the hormone that regulates all the system, that is the HPO axis in the female body. So when we are sleeping in the night, at the early morning, the TSH levels will minimize due to the inhibitory effect of sleep on the TSH secretion. So we regularly advise the thyroid medicine, which patients are taking thyroid medicine regularly, to take at the early morning so that the TSH levels can be maintained. Also, the prolactin is stimulated by the sleep. So by taking proper sleep, the prolactin level can be in proper amount in case of the lactating mother. What happens is when light comes to the retina, the suprachiasmatic nucleus stimulates the GnRH neurons at the hypothalamus that further stimulates the pituitary, which sends the signals to ovaries and that directs the uterus so that these chains of cycle or the secretion of hormones can be maintained in a regular level. There are certain relation of melatonin level in the menstrual cycle. When the starting of menstruation, that is the bleeding phase, that the melatonin level is at very low level. When the time of ovulation, the melatonin rises, as we can see in the graph. So melatonin levels should be at the top level so that ovulation can be occur. So melatonin is directly having some effect on the level of ovulatory hormones like LH and FSH, so that the ladies can have a proper menstrual cycle throughout the life. If we see the level of cortisol, it is also having a effect on LH, estradiol, and progesterone production. So both melatonin and cortisol, which is the prime hormone of the sleep awake cycle, can be maintained when we regularly maintain the daily routine. Why the incidence of gynecological disorders is rising day by day? Because of our lifestyle changes, as we are not taking the proper sleep at the night time, or we are taking the day sleep, so that the gynecological disorders or the functions of reproductive organs cannot be maintained because of the disturbed hormonal levels. There are certain factors which are deviating the menstrual cycle, that is the sleep disturbances, shifting of work, or those ladies doing the night's duties and transmeridian flights. Those are taking a flight from one country to another. Next is the skipping of meals and irregular diet pattern, or overeating, or having some junk foods or fast food in daily life. All these are giving stimuli to the master pacemaker so that it cannot be function regularly at the right time. What happens is due to this stimuli, there are certain irregularities, or we can say dysfunction at the female reproduction, like oligoanovulations, insulin resistance, hyperandrogenism, or implantation failure, irregular menstruation, early aging, or dysmenorrhea or early puberty. This kind of dysfunction we generally see in the patients those are having some lifestyle changes in the daily routine. For those females are doing shifting of work, or those are doing night shifting work, they are having sleep deprivations and circadian dyssynchrony or melatonin suppression. That further causes the glucose intolerance or with insulin resistance, which are mainly we can find in the patients of PCOS or those that suffer from early pregnancy loss or abortions, or having some oxidative stress and also increased prolactin levels. All this leads to anovulations and amenorrhea that further leads to infertility in the further life. So shifting of work is directly doing some hormonal dysregulation, so that in the further life the patient will suffer from this kind of abnormality. So sleep during the Brahma Muhurta will disturb our sleep awake cycle, so that the hormonal level will be altered. So the ladies will further having the disturbed menstrual cycle that can lead to gynecological manifestation. Some regular disease, what we can find due to the young girls who are doing study at the time of night, like PCOS, amenorrhea, infertility, DOP, that can be some disease what we can suggest the lifestyle changes or lifestyle modifications, or certainly by doing some daily routine correction, this disease can be prevented nowadays. If we see particularly on the infertility, due to the secretion of melatonin, there will be immature follicle, arrest of maturations, thus those leads to anovulation, which is a prime factor of infertility. Menopausal syndrome, as we know, the disease of old age, where in the old age the patients are generally will come with a lack of sleep, as melatonin levels naturally decrease with the age. So by doing proper sleep wake cycle, the melatonin level can be compromised or can be maintained in a particular level, so that this kind of disease cannot be occur in the further life. There are also certain researches under this section, that is a diurnal rhythm of free estradiol during the menstrual cycle, that suggests the increased secretion of estradiol in the early morning is associated with the nocturnal rise in the gonadotropin secretion. If the a lady is not having sleep at the night time, there will be not gonadotropin secretion. So further the estradiol secretion will not be there. So the sleep awake routine is prime important for the regulation of the hormones of female reproductive system. There are also prestigious Nobel Prize winning research that validates the Ayurvedic circadian clock. So at this note, we can conclude that the Dinacharya, what mentioned in our classics, that starts from the Brahma Muhurta, where the Vayu, Agni and Bala have the optimum functions, or that regulates the biological clock of the body. So the female reproductive system acts properly when the proper sleep awake cycle is maintained, for which awakening in the Brahma Muhurta Kala is the most necessary regime for a female. So at this note, I want to say that we are biological beings. We are not our smartphones or computers, so our body cannot behave